So thankfully, compared to a year ago, there's nowhere near as much dead wood at the club. More importantly, expensive dead wood. Players like Smalling, Fellaini, Young have stepped up, but there's definitely still a lot of dead wood at the club. So here's six players that I definitely think have to leave this summer. The first is Anders Lindegaard. It's clear LVG does not rate him in the slightest way. Didn't get to play a game in the cups. Just didn't play a minute or even a second at all this season. I don't think he was even playing for the reserves. Just spent the whole season sitting on the bench, and not even that when Valdez came. And he has played a few games for the Danish national team. So he is a decent keeper, and I think we might get 5 million for him off a club like Villa, West Ham. Any top 10 clubs might be looking for a goalkeeper. Second one is Raphael. Hasn't lived up to his potential. He's been too injury prone, which is much of the reason. Hasn't progressed in his decision making. Is definitely a player that you look at, and the way he plays, when you see someone at 18, 19 playing that way, it's okay. There's still potential, but he's still playing the same way he did when he first arrived, and he's just not making progress. And he's going to be like other players at the club who just, like Nani, who I'll talk about in a minute, who just don't seem to progress, and they just get older and older, and just no progress. Evans, it barely deserves mention, but I'll mention anyway. Every time he comes on the pitch, he looks like a liability. Possibly, depending who you believe has disciplinary issues with that spitting with Papa Cisse. He lacks leadership qualities that he should have at his age. He's the most senior defender at United by quite some distance. He doesn't, like Smalling, has progressed in leadership qualities. He hasn't developed in the way that I suppose Sir Alex, who brought him through and the fans would have hoped. He definitely seems to miss Rio and Vidic next to him. Definitely misses the dominant personality. Um, I don't think you get that at United as a senior defender. And I think in general he lacks the quality we need in the Champions League. Like I said, he's looked the liability constantly, just looked absolutely lost. And I think he might end up at a club like Sunderland. He was on loan there a few years ago. I know the club rate him very highly, so I think that might be a good shout. Next one is Hernandez. He's a player I think is on his day is good enough for United. Has scored lots of goals, has scored a lot of important goals. But the days of poachers are probably gone. Just your out and out poachers like Michael Owen was. Players need to be a lot more than that nowadays. His build-up play isn't great. But as a whole, I would have kept him. But the thing that has decided it for me is simply the way he's talked about United since he went on loan to Madrid. He's talked about Madrid as the biggest club in the world, and in general has been very disrespectful to United. And that would have been fine to a point, considering we brought him from nothing before the World Cup. No one knew about him. But now that it's been made clear that Madrid don't want him, he's tried to weave his way back in to United, and as we claim to be the biggest club in the world, we can't be anybody's second choice. So there's rumours he's off to Atletico Madrid to replace Mandzukic, and definitely off with you, Javier. As I mentioned earlier, Nani, it just isn't good enough for a club like Manchester United, or in the I think a lot of people think he's probably good enough for Premier League, but I think at this stage that ship has sailed. I think he might be best just staying with Sporting Lisbon in Portugal. He's been very inconsistent, which you can't have at a club like United where you have a big game midweek, mid-game, big game during the weekend. You can't have a player who shows up once every 5 or 6 games, or even every 5 or 6 months. He's never showed a big game. The one time I can really think is he did score in the Champions League final penalty shootout, and beyond that I can't think of a big moment that he had in a big important game. So off with you. And the last one is probably a forgotten man at Old Trafford. Nick Powell. There was high hopes for him when we signed him from Crew. I think Sir Alex had a lot of thought he was going to be the next big thing along with Wilfred Zaha. Those two, I think we all know how that worked out. Like Zaha has a poor attitude. He went on loan to Leicester. They didn't want him. They sent him back alone. I think that says everything about him. Like I said, the club has no time for poor attitudes like that. So they're the 6 players I think have to leave that you would have to see as Deadwood. Hernandez and Raphael are kind of the two somewhat 50-50 ones, but sometimes you have to let the head come ahead of the heart, and for that reason those 6 just simply have to go. So thanks for watching, and subscribe and share.